Hi, I am so excited to invite you to our three-part online series called Addressing Racism from the Inside Out. It promises to be interactive, content rich, and you'll leave with practical tools you can apply right away. We know that, and you know, that racism is embedded in many of our systems and institutions. And like fish swimming in our own cultural waters, sometimes it's hard to see the whole picture. So we've divided this series into three parts. The first is addressing racism within ourselves. The second is addressing racism as a bystander. And the third is addressing racism as a target. First, let me tell you about part one, addressing racism within ourselves. In this session, we'll be exploring how to address bias and racism within ourselves and the systems we influence. We'll be starting with Elder Larry Grant from Musqueam First Nations, who will be opening the whole series with traditional welcome, as well as integrating Musqueam teachings on how to address racism. The next speaker for session one is Dr. Michael Quinn Patton, who will be doing a deep dive around addressing bias and racism within ourselves and the systems we influence. He'll be integrating and sharing reflective learning practices that you can take home and apply within your own life. This first part is so key. Often shame and guilt and denial keep us from exploring bias and racism within our own selves. So by the end of session one, you should have a nice toolkit for moving forward with your own ongoing reflective learning practices. For part two, addressing racism as a bystander, this is where we really get to the heart of any system of exclusion like racism. Bystanders play the most critical role. We are the majority. When we bury our heads in the sand, or stay in denial, or don't want to get involved for a myriad of reasons, this is what keeps the system, the attitudes, behaviors, the policies, and practices going. So I'm excited that Dr. Roberta Hunt from Portland State University will be our guest speaker, and we're really in for a treat. We'll be looking at reflective learning practices. She'll be sharing some stories, but you'll definitely be leaving with some really practical tools on how you can empower the systems that you influence to be actors for change. And finally, we have Kathy Shikapio, who will be the speaker for part three, addressing racism as a target. And as we've all seen in the news, all sorts of situations, especially in the healthcare system lately, around racist practices directed towards Indigenous people. Kathy Shikapio is from Mistissini, a Cree First Nations in Northern Quebec, and she's held many high-profile portfolios around Indigenous health, around, she's ran for politics, she's had a myriad of positions that involve negotiations, addressing around Indigenous, non-Indigenous relations, as well as patient care for the Cree Nation. And Kathy will be sharing her stories, tools, strategies, and practices for addressing racism as a target. She'll be drawing in her expertise around industrial relations and her work as a HR consultant. And again, as in all the other parts of the series, we'll be integrating reflective learning practices so that you can integrate it into the work and into your life. And this will also, even if people attending are not direct, some of the people attending may not be direct targets of racism, these tools will help you if you're a target of anything, but also it will really build on what Dr. Roberta Hunt will be talking about in terms of bystander intervention skills. When we understand more what a target goes through and the strategies they need for self-care and influencing systems, then as bystanders, we can be more effective. and how we work to support the voice, dignity, and leadership of those most targeted by racism, and also influence the system so that it works better for all of us. So those are our 4 guest speakers on our webinar series. And it comes with some follow-up resources. Number 1, we have a workbook that has reflective learning practices for each part. As we know, addressing racism from the inside out isn't a one-time event where we learn it once and we're done with it. We have many opportunities to practice and use these skills. And so this workbook is intended to be something that you can use over and over again. So you have reflective learning practices for how to address racism within yourself, reflective learning practices on how to address racism as a bystander, and finally, reflective learning practices on how to address racism as a target. And to help you, you'll not only get this workbook, but Justine Huang will be demonstrating each of those practices and how she uses them in her own life and her own work for addressing racism from the inside out. And next, we have follow-up recorded interviews that will help you with your learning and putting these tools into practice. So we have Constant Backhouse, who has written several amazing books on our legal system, and one of them is around systemic racism in our legal system. So this is really important work so that we understand more how racism is embedded in so many of our systems. And then we have Grace Babultine, who will be speaking about her work with Asian Women for Equality Society, and why addressing racism from this inside out is so key to support Asian women equality, which I know we all want to see. And finally, Hussein Jan Mohammed will be another recorded interview, and he'll be speaking about his work with building unity across racial divides, across intercultural divides. He's a PhD candidate at the University of Toronto and has done incredible work worldwide around uniting people through collaborative, creative works with music. So that will definitely be a treat as well. So I really want you to invite you to join this. I really believe the time is now. The world is changing rapidly. And there's been a bit of a shock for many people around the world with some of the changes. And the time is now. If we want to really look at shifting our systems for a different kind of world that's just, that's sustainable, the time is now. So we're really all very excited to be sharing this program, Addressing Racism from the Inside Out, with you, and look forward to you having us join us in this community of leaders. And as an extra bonus to this program, we are adding a 3-month community of practice. So after you've gone through the program, you'll be invited once a month to join a community of practice where you can share your successes, your challenges, ask questions, get support on how to integrate the reflective learning practices. So I invite you, we invite you, and we really look forward to seeing you there. Have a great day.